So I'm borrowing tonight's workshop from a workshop I took a couple years ago by a choreographer, Danish choreographer. I'm gonna butcher his name, but I'm gonna send it here in the chat. Paye Granhosh, I believe, is somewhat close to how he pronounces it. Um, and his company is just his last name. I'm gonna put that in here as well if anyone wants to look up his company after the fact. Um, and so he taught a workshop when I was in Poland that really resonated with me, and it feels especially relevant. And he was very clear, and it says on his website as well that he borrowed this from. So he works mostly in dance, and he considers himself a dance choreographer, but he learned this while working with a theater artist, a theater director, choreographer named Nancy Spanier. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Nancy from her own bio, because I think that it's a good segue into what we're going to do. She's an internationally recognized multidisciplinary artist whose work is choreographed, and it actually has quotes around the word choreographed. So her work is choreographed in the broadest sense of the word. She coined the phrase performance inventions to encompass the scope of her work. And so I bring that up because I am going to task us with becoming choreographers today. But I just mean that in that we're going to be developing a very short, each developing a short piece of material that relates to space, time, and energy and is repeatable. So I'm going to give some tasks in terms of building that choreography. And I'll put those also in the chat, but I'll talk a little bit about them first. So the choreography that we're going to create, or the performance invention, if that's a better term for you, is something that's repeatable and something that's loopable so that you can repeat it over and over again. And that the repetition and the loopability of it, that your relationship to space, time, and energy is exactly the same every time you loop it or every time you repeat it. It should incorporate some form of verbal, a verbal moment, whether it's a short phrase or a sound. It could be a short line from a poem or a short lyric. It could be sung or spoken, or it could just be vocalized like a sound, like who or anything that has some kind of vocal quality to it. There should be one facing change. So at some point, you should face a different wall. There should be one level change. And it doesn't have to be a big like jump to the floor, but like something that changes your relationship to the floor. There should be one recognizable gesture. And that doesn't mean it needs to be recognized, like thumbs up is something we all recognize, but something that like, even if I just were to do this, if I were to do this at the beginning of a show and then do this again towards the end of the show, we would recognize that gesture. There should be some percussive moment. So something that makes sound, a snap, a stomp, a clap. And then the only other rule is that it needs to stay within your frame of camera. So it can't travel beyond the scope of your own camera. So I'm going to put all of those rules in the chat. So repeatable, loopable, short phrase that includes some kind of spoken moment, one facing change, one level change, one recognizable gesture, one percussive moment, and stay within the frame of the camera. Beyond that, you can play with any other elements of movement that you want. It can have more than one of each of these things, but it needs to have at least one of each of those things. And let's try and keep it within like an 8 count. So however you want to tempo, that is fine, but not too long. Can we take like 5 to 10 minutes to play with this? Cool. So let's check back in 10 minutes. And would anyone feel comfortable showing their short phrase?
The clanging and the banging of the bells, bells, bells. Ah, I messed it up. The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells. The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells. The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells.
Great. Do you have a chair or a block or something that you could rest your foot on top of? Your job is to try and go through the choreography 3 times, maintaining as much integrity as possible without removing your foot from that stool.
The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells. The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells. The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells.
Yes. Excellent. Cool. So I'm going to send us away again to kind of play with that idea for ourselves as well. So so maybe Joe, you can maybe choose something new or try to choose the other foot just to feel what that feels like. But let's take 5 minutes to just try maintaining the integrity of our choreography with our foot resting on top of something. Does anyone want to share their experience with their 2 versions of the phrase?
$97. $97. $97. $97.
Nice. Yeah. Great. I want to invite observations from anyone about what they saw between the 2. Just observations, things that you noticed. For example, I noticed that changing the level of her foot also caused her body to come closer to us. That she had to kind of pitch forward a little bit in her body to maintain balance with the difference of the foot.
I noticed it also made that final gesture of the hand on the knee much more prominent. I didn't even notice it the first time around, and then,
which to me read the second time that there was almost more either power or aggression from the movement as well. So just an interesting observation that a change that was kind of arbitrary also comes with a potential emotional change for the viewer. So I'm gonna share the one that I made because it's fairly extreme. So here's the original. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. And when I put my foot on this thing, which also is not stable. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. So the priority of maintaining the integrity of the timing for me with that outweighed maintaining the integrity of space, because I made the decision that our recognition of the phrase would have diminished if the timing was too manipulated. So if I had tried to for example, like stay true to that leg circle moment and like slow this down and try to find a way to bring my knee to the floor like I had before. That to me all of a sudden becomes a very different it changes the energy and it changes the time. Whereas if I maintain the time and the energy, then I have to make some changes to the space, and that's okay. That's kind of what we're navigating, is what things, how much integrity can we hold on to, what needs to slip away a little bit. Pally, I think is how he says his name. He uses this technique, he calls this obstruction technique. So literally creating obstructions for the dancers. And he uses this as his means for developing full works. And when he was teaching it to the workshop I was in, we were actually obstructing one another. So he would ask us, okay, hold her onto her hand. And now she has to do that whole dance with someone holding her hand. Or like physically glue her foot to the floor. She can't move her foot. And so then our reaction to that also becomes a dance. And what I've been curious about is how we can use the very literal obstruction that we're all experiencing to take this into a COVID version of this activity. And while obstruction has a usually negative connotation, I think that he thinks of obstruction as opportunity, as invention, as a friendly challenge, as discovery, as we were mentioning before. So I kind of want to play again and see if we can open ourselves up to that side of this game. So what I'm going to ask you to do first is just see if there's anything you want to add or change about your original phrase, and take a few minutes to go back and see if there's something maybe more, with maybe a little bit more stakes to it that you want to add or alter. So let's start there. Good. So I'm going to give us a new obstruction, and I want you to go through your new phrase, or the latest version of the phrase, twice with normal integrity and then twice with this this obstruction, and just see how it goes for yourself. And this new obstruction is to either place one hand in your pocket or on your hip and like glue it to your hip. So if you have pockets, put a hand in the pocket. If you don't have pockets, just glue a hand to your hip. And I'd love to be able to share these if we feel comfortable.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
How'd that feel?
With one hand in my hip, felt much less powerful. Felt like a different character, a different person.
Interesting.
And not as mad.
What's that? Not as mad?
Not as mad.
Yeah. Did anyone feel that watching it?
What's funny is the second round felt, this is just emotional response, felt more frustrated to me. Not necessarily angry, but had like a higher degree of tension in it in a weird way. And it may have just been the growth of it, that it, you know, by the time you do it 4 times saying no, 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 but it may have also just, but like there was something in it that felt unfulfilled, frustrated, tense.
I felt similarly, and I think you're right that the repetition and that the fact that she's saying it 4 times in a row. But I think without the change in the gesture, I wouldn't have felt it, because it felt as though she hit a wall and something had to change, even though she was still going through the same frustration.
I think I felt that I had to try and keep the same intensity, that I had to do more because I only had one hand and not two.
Yeah, interesting. I think that if we were being like super stringent about the rules of the integrity, we'd want to have the same amount of energy in the arms both times. So however much energy you're giving your left arm when you're doing both arms should stay the same. And then, but as the performer, we seek that the similarity in our emotional response, but the physical response doesn't. The emotional response is going to change when the physical response changes, especially if we're maintaining the integrity of the original physical action. Anyone else want to share?
Morning. 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 Morning.
Nice. Really nice. Just for the sake of seeing it, can I see what it would look like if you maintained the integrity of the clap
Yeah.
and lost the sound?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Morning. Morning.
Yeah, thank you. Nice. It gives it such a different experience as the viewer. How was the experience for you in either version, really?
I think the thing of putting the hand on the hip, just like the time of putting my foot on a block that I have, where I'm like trying to go up and down. I was like, like what you were saying about like having to tweak some integrity of something has to give.
Right.
So what has to give?
Right. I think the and this is something that I use with my students all the time that I forgot to kind of say is, I think the key word is that we're trying to maintain the integrity, right? Mm-hmm. Trying. That it's designed to not allow us to have full integrity, but the trying is the interesting part, I think.
Mm-hmm.
In the second iteration, with the arm here and the clapping, or at least the attended clapping, and like going down on one knee, it resembled a cheer to me. It's like, oh, it's a cheerleader doing a weird good morning routine. Okay, which completely changed what the whole thing was about for me. Yeah.
Right. And I think that the important thing to kind of tie in with that is that the exercise is designed as a generative exercise. It's not necessarily designed to be narrative. However, our audiences are good. Whatever. I took a workshop with Rosanna Gamson a couple years ago, and she was saying, whatever the audience sees is what it is. You can't be like, oh, well, it was supposed to be, or the intention was. As soon as the audience sees it, it's what it is. So no matter what the intention was in developing the movement, it becomes whatever the audience wants it to be in that moment. Anyone else want to share?
It's after midnight. Oh, I forgot the it's after midnight. Hold on. It's after midnight. It's after midnight. It's after midnight.
Cool. Nice. Any immediate observations from anyone else?
It suddenly became so casual just because of the hand in the pocket. It's like, wow, oh, you've gone from this choreographed person to, oh, you're just a cool guy doing this like cool after midnight thing. Oh, yeah. All the kids are doing it.
Only I'd left in something evil's lurking in the dark, it would have had a whole other connotation.
It's so interesting because I had not I wouldn't say an opposite reaction, but an alternative reaction in that the lack of symmetry made it so much more specific and idiosyncratic that it almost felt more official somehow. Like it was very stylized. Like, this is the way that we do this march, and only we do this march this way.
Interesting. So you mean in the second version, the fact that it was asymmetrical caused it to almost seem more more choreographed, more precise to your eye?
Yeah, more choreographed is a great way to say it. Yeah, more intentional. Round 3. So you'll do your original a couple times, and then have something nearby, an object, any object nearby, and on your next round, part of your body has to always be in contact with that object. You can change what part of your body is in contact, but something always has to be in contact with whatever your chosen object is. So you can go from your foot to your hand, or your hip to your knee, as long as for the entirety of the 8 counts, you are in contact with your chosen object. So round 1 is original. Round 2 is always touching an object. Round 3, keep touching that object, but add holding something in your mouth. You can either put something in your mouth and hold on to it, or if you'd rather just bite your tongue, that's also an option. I'll go ahead and share first, and then we can take turns if we wish. So my object is this stool. I got a face mask to put in my mouth. I'm gonna do twice of each version. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. Guilty feet. So there it is, for better or worse.
I mean, I will offer that the multiple obstructions created a lot of interest. Like, just for me as a viewer, and it's less of an observation, it's more of an observation of myself. that having the satisfaction of the cleanliness disrupted by the attempt to keep that sort of cleanliness while having these other things was actually very, very satisfying to watch in certain ways.
The twanging and the clanging of the bells. Arms. Keep forgetting arms. Arms, arms, arms. It's going to change. Okay. Get out of your head, Joe. The clanging and the banging of the bells, bells, bells. The clanging and banging of the bells, 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 bells. Okay. And the clanging and the banging. One more time. The clanging and the banging of the bells, 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 bells. The clanging and the banging of the bells, bells, bells. Ha! It's short-circuiting my brain too much. All right, last iteration. The clanging and the ringing of the bell, 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 bell. The clanging and the banging of the bell, 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 bell.
That was great.
Oy.
I feel like even the our own personal obstructions, like the obstructions we put upon ourselves, are also interesting. That's what I think is so great about this technique, is that there's literally no way to fail. Everything is an obstruction and therefore an opportunity. There was one other version that I think we have time for if someone wants to try it on, would be you do the 3 versions. So original, obstruction 1, obstruction 2, and then you reverse it. So you remove the thing from your mouth and you separate yourself from the object and come back to home. Would anyone be interested in doing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1?
$97. $97. $97. $97. $97. $97. Oops, not yet. Damn it. Not $97. $97. $97. $97. $97. $97.
Amazing. The transitions, the subtle, small little moments that were really just setting you up for repeatability became so large. Like the adjusting of the stick, the spitting out of was it a bobby pin?
To straw.
Yeah. Amazing. Any other observations? Or how did it feel, Julie?
Okay. I mean, it was kind of fun to free myself of the obstructions, right? To not just let go of the straw, but to spit it out, to reclaim voice. And think I failed in the objective of maintaining the energetic consistency throughout. I let the objects inform me a little bit more. Like there was something about the sound of the stick hit that gave the cue to do the next thing once it came into play. And when I lost the mouth obstruction, having a higher energy on my voice or more nervous energy in my voice came into play. And some of that too is just the repetition of the up and down and what happens in your body in doing that. But it had an emotive quality that changed in the course of the repetition. So, so yeah, I'm curious if I had how that might be different if I had a higher discipline in maintaining the evenness of that and allow the, you know, it's fine to let like the objects inform it, and do you lean into that or do you push against it, right? And I felt like I was leaning into it a little bit. So.
Right. I know that like when I took the workshop, he was super stringent about maintaining those kind of like original energies. Mm-hmm. But we also had a lot more time. So there was the, you know, the necessity of rehearsal to be able to maintain that. But you also bring up an interesting point of the reality of endurance, that when you are repeating something, the ability to maintain your energetic integrity requires more.
I think it's also really interesting what you were saying, Julie, is that when you have so much energy coming out when you're speaking, you still might have exactly the same amount of energy, but we don't hear it because it's being obstructed so much.
Right. And then it becomes the question of like the transference of energy or the sensation of energy, and which are we after? And that's, I think, can change day to day or, you know, task to task.
I had a very interesting experience. It was a kind of a roller coaster processing what Julie did, because with the addition of the obstacles, it creates tension. Or at least for me, it felt like there was rising levels of tension, because I could tell that there were things that she was working against. And then there was the process of the release of that tension. So dramatically, I got really invested, and then I found myself going, and then, okay, it's back to normal. So it was just like a really neat little encapsulated version of what makes drama interesting. You know?
Right. And that's when we get to put on that director cap and decide what it is that we're after. You know, what are we looking to build tension? If we are, then you know, that reversal is not the choice that we're going to make. But in the same way, we felt less tension from Diana when she put her hand on her hip. So adding an obstruction in that situation was the opposite. Right. So it's not like I think that's another thing I love about this game, is that it's like, we really don't ever know what we're going to get. Like, we throw out an obstruction and we see how it lands, and then we assess and move on.
Yeah.